So the housekeeping on here. So definitely, because this is a in-person, feel free to, again, raise your hand. If, you can have communication. Also, you can respond to the Facebook if you're on there as well. So one of the first things, if you all got a chance when you signed up on Better Impact, you got some welcome information from Jonathan Hill, our volunteer coordinator. With that, he gives you some instructions on what are some of the processes that you need to complete to participate in the program. And the first is taking the ethics. So everyone, regardless of if they're going to be a tax preparer, a greeter, intake, whatever task that they would be volunteering for at the tax site, they would have to take the ethics. And so that is just understanding that as we use this information, that you are safeguarding the tax clients, their information. You're not talking amongst yourselves. You're not using any of their data, taking it with you. If you have a part-time job, side hustle, or you know someone that does something, you're not using their information to refer them on there. So this is a no-charge free tax preparation service on there. Then the next one is our intake interview quality review. So that this is what we're asking. We have a form that all our tax clients have to fill out when they come to our site location. Everyone has to complete it, and we need to make sure that it is complete in its entirety. Even if a tax client doesn't know, the intake specialist, their job is to ask additional questions before they come to you, the tax preparer. You're still able to ask the additional questions, even if you're unsure, or even if it seems as if it's correct. You can always ask follow-up questions, because as a reviewer, I'm going to come right behind you and probably ask them the same question. And so what this intake form is, it kind of walks them through the tax return, making sure that we have all of their tax documents, their in-source documents, that we are able to complete a complete and accurate tax return based on the information, to the best of our abilities, that we have received all the information that has happened within that tax year. So that is another certification that you all have to take. So you have to take the ethics and the intake before you can move along to the advance. And so it is within that order. The ethics first, the intake quality review as well, then you move on to the advance. So we all will be taking the advanced certification, just because it's going to encompass all of the tax information that we get that's going to walk through our doors. So the advanced certification, so you're taking today, day one of the training, then tomorrow we're going to pick up with day two. That's going to conclude. Well, you still may be a little lost, need some additional help. So down below, you're going to see that we have some practice labs. So these kick off on January the 16th. They're in person as well as live, so through Zoom. You can join them at your leisure. They're about 2 to 3 hours. All you have to do is, maybe as you're working on a question, you can hop in, ask the question, and leave. It's at your leisure, so it's a come and go. So you use this as we help you walk through your advanced certification. You all have the test book, the 6744. If you have it virtual or a hard copy, we ask that you answer those questions before you take the advanced certification. You're only given 2 attempts to take it before you will probably have to create another email, another account on there. So we ask that you answer the questions before you actually go and take the actual certification test, because some of the questions could be different. You could get some questions from the actual test, or you could get questions from the retest, so that you're prepared. And then what does our 2022-2023 tax season look like? So we're just kind of coming back to doing a lot of in-person training, in-person tax preparation, where we're starting to push back from doing a lot of appointments. So as you see, we have 7 different sites all over the Metroplex. And so now this tax season, what we're doing is, a lot of our sites, we're doing away with appointments. This allows us to serve more of the community. On there, we saw that with appointments, that some people would forget their appointments. They could not make it. I think people enjoy the fact that they could just walk in, even if they have to wait for a few minutes, that there are maybe like 30 minutes or so, that they're able to wait and get their tax return the same day. So that's what you're going to see at a lot of our site locations where we won't be taking appointments. And that's going to hopefully get us back to our numbers, our pre-COVID numbers of maybe 12 to 13,000 tax returns that we do. So you guys definitely help us a lot on there. With most of these locations, they are connected with the city of Dallas. So they have lifted COVID restrictions, but you're more than welcome to bring your mask. If you want to bring a shield, sanitizer, we will have that at our site locations on there for you to feel comfortable. So we want you to feel comfortable when you come in and prepare a tax return. So you let us know what you need. We do still have some desk shields. If that is going to make you comfortable preparing a tax return, then we can do that. We also have a few small scale of virtual tax prep opportunities. We do try to extend that more to our veteran volunteers on there, but we do have some of those options if you want to prepare returns virtually, and that would be getting with the volunteer coordinator, Jonathan Hale, as he will be leading that group. Okay, so a lot of this publication, you probably got the links from Jonathan when you signed up. So our 4012, this is where a lot of this training material will be coming from. If you have a physical copy, you can definitely bring that to you at the site location. But we will have laptops or desktops at our site locations, and on the desktop, we will have the 4012. So don't feel like you have to know everything. Even if it's something that you forget, look in the 4012. Tell the tax client, give me just a few minutes. On there, that's what I do. Or if it's something like, hey, let me go and talk to the site coordinator, assistant site coordinator, just to clarify something on there. So don't be afraid of feeling like you have to know everything. The tax client, they don't. That's why they're coming to you to get their taxes prepared. But you want to make sure that you have your 4012 so that you can go back and look it up and just kind of make sure that, you know, this is the way that I feel that we should input this information, or these are the qualifying, these are the determining factors. The next one is the 4491. This is a more detailed training guide. The 4012 that you just saw, it does give you the screenshots of what's in the TaxSlayer software. So you can also use the 4491 if you want a little more detailed information. Again, all these are on the irs.gov. These are their pubs. And this one, Jonathan may not have sent to you, but if you go to the irs.gov website, you can just type in these numbers and you're going to get the current publication. The 4491X, because the IRS, they are still making updates to software. The 4491X will be their pub after any updates after they've released the 4012 and the initial 4491 on there. So you can see it still has the 2021 because at the time they had not released any additional updates. Maybe if they've passed some things through legislation, maybe they've increased or decreased or maybe taken a credit off after the pub, then we would see it listed here. Then we have the 6744. So this one you receive electronically or a hard copy. This is your test booklet. So it does have the ethics, the intake quality review, the advanced, as well as if you decide that you want to do the NR tax return. And it has the test and the retest there for you as well. This is a publication 17. So this is for all individual tax returns, not for individuals for as the NR. The IRS, they have stopped putting this pub in print. So in order to get this would be on the irs.gov website. And so our goal is to also have this one on the desktop as well. This would be the first reference material because it does have everything. It's walking you actually through a tax return. How to complete, it encompasses everything for the 1040. So you heard me mention that when a tax client goes to the tax site, that they all have to complete a form. This is the 13614C. So everyone receives this. Even at the NR, they have one that is very similar. Everyone has to receive this form and complete it in order to get their taxes done at our site location. Once they complete it, they go to the intake individual. The intake will go over this. They will also make sure that they have their ID, their social. If they don't have a social, an I-10, we're going to cover what's an I-10. And then they need to have all of their tax documents in order for us to start the tax return. So we don't want to give something over to you and they didn't bring all of their source documents. Definitely they come in and they don't have a W-2 or they're missing a W-2. We don't want you to have to start that tax return and they're missing something significant. So this is about 4 or 5 pages and they need to complete this in its entirety. They're always able to ask us for questions. And you can see on some of the questions, like if you go to number 10, can anyone claim you or your spouse as a dependent? It is yes, no, or unsure. So that is the intake's responsibility if they marked unsure to convert that to a yes or no. Then if you see that maybe it got missed, then you can ask questions. You're also able to ask and verify. Then I'll come back and I can ask and verify. You'll see that it does have questions. It asks about marital status and household information. So we don't ask a person if they're married, divorced. We don't ask them what their status. We ask them to select have they been never married, divorced, legally separated, or widowed. Because based upon them answering these type of questions, we determine what their filing status is. So someone cannot come up and tell me that they're head of household. You have to answer the questions, complete this, so I know that you're head of household. Also, it says list the names of everyone who lived in your household. So we are asking them to list everyone in the household so we make the determination if this individual is a dependent or not on there. So there are times where maybe someone does qualify as a dependent. Maybe they don't want to claim them on the tax return, or maybe they're trying to claim someone and they're not a dependent for them. And we have to tell them that, no, we have to take that off the tax return. Ooh. So then on to the next page. So you'll see the first thing that they have is their income. And this follows with the form 1040. So it's going to ask them list all sources of income that they may have. If they have it, we'll want them to select yes. And you can see to the far right, it's also going to show in parentheses a form referencing a form. We'll see no or unsure. Again, if it's unsure, the intake goal is to go and convert that to a yes or no. Does this actually pertain to that individual? So if someone had on here yes, and we don't find that form, they don't have a physical copy, they don't have electronic version where we could print it off from their phone, they can't email it to us, I would stop right here. We would not move further with that client if they're missing income. Maybe we would then allow them to upload it through the portal, but income, we would definitely need the income in order to start that tax return on there. Also, as you're having questions, you're having a conversation, general conversation, sometimes things pop up. Maybe someone had multiple temp jobs and, you know, as you're going through their W-2s or their source documents, you notice that something is missing, but they still want to go and get their tax return completed. No, they've already told me from the conversation that there is some missing income, so I would stop right there. If you don't feel comfortable, you go to your site coordinator or your assistant site coordinator, and then you can let us speak with them. Then we have expenses. So these are some things that, as we're going to talk about, like adjustment or deductions, that they may qualify to reduce their income, to maybe reduce their taxes that they owe, or maybe boost up their refund on here. So this could be maybe you all are in college. So if you had to pay something out of pocket or took out a student loan, there may be a credit that you yourself or your parents may qualify to put on their tax return. So again, there's going through all this information. There's still forms that they may be able to provide, as well as life events on here that has forms or questions. Again, anything that is marked unsure, we have to get it over to a yes or no. And so this last page is just the follow-up questions on here. So do they want to contribute to the presidential campaign? On there, if they're getting a refund, do they want it to go into their bank account? If they owe, do they want us to put in their bank information for it to be pulled out, for us to have the IRS to pull it out? So there's different options on how they can receive their refund, direct deposit, or savings bonds. They can get it in a check, as well as there's different ways that they can pay as well on there. And then there's this space right here if they want to put any additional comments, or if you need to make notes as you're entering in their tax return. So the very last piece on this form, it is our global consent. So what this is, it is the taxpayer and the spouse, they have the option to opt into this. This means if they go 1 year to my site location and do their tax return, and then maybe they move, or maybe it's congested at my site location, then they go to Andrew's site location in Hampton, Illinois. If they sign this, that means next year, yes, they want to, when I prepared the 2021 return, they're going to Andrew for 2022. Their basic information is going to pull over once he enters in their social. If if they do not sign, that means their information is not rolling over. And it's just not for site to site. This is for anyone that is participating in the VITA program. If they sign this, that means they are allowing us to share their information with another VITA site if they decide to go there. So we talked about on the 13614C that they have to present us one with some identification on there, not just that, a social or ITIN, but what are some types of valid identification that we will accept? We will accept a U.S. driver's license. It's possible it could be an employer ID, depending on if we are able to tell if it's a good picture. Definitely, because we also have some young individuals, 16 or 17, that could be dependents, or they could be independent doing their own return, and they may not have an ID. So in some cases, we may accept an employer ID based on how it looks. School ID, again, those for those high school students that they're not able to get an ID as of yet. It does have their name, the school, and the picture. A U.S. state ID, a military ID, a national ID, a visa, a passport. And there may be some other exceptions, but that is going to be based upon the site coordinator on there. So these are all types of valid identification that are accepted at the VITA site. And so pretty much you should have one of these by the time the client comes to you to get their tax return prepared. You should see one of those forms of identification, because that's what you're going to be using when you go to TaxSlayer. You're going to be using their social security card or their ITIN number to start that return. Then when it comes and asks them for their date of birth, then hopefully you're going to get that from their ID. The second resort would be getting their date of birth from the intake sheet. So our goal is, once we put all of this information into TaxSlayer, it produces the form 1040 on here. So they've done away, the IRS has done away with the 1040A, the 1040EZ. They do have the 1040SR, but our software is going to always populate the 1040 form. So this is all the information, all the data that we put in from the income, if there were any adjustments, the standard deduction or any additional deductions or credits that they qualify for. This is what we're going to review with the client, this 1040 form. As you'll see, it's going to start with their filing status, their the taxpayer, if it's a spouse, their name, their social, any dependents, and then it goes from income. So you can see that it works its way down just like the intake form. This is the second page where it talks about the tax credits, then payments. Then if a person is due a refund, or do they have to pay? On there, most of our goals is where you see the signature. Most of our goal at our site's location is to e-file these tax returns. It's that we do have some individuals where they still have to we print this out and they have to mail it into the IRS. But most of the time when we print it out, it's their copy. On there, we want to e-file as many returns as we can, definitely with COVID. That means their return will get processed faster. The goal would be they would hopefully get their refund if they have one timely. I believe the IRS is still backlogging, kind of working on some things, so we try to push back on paper returns as much as possible if we can. So within the past few years, with them getting rid of the 1040A, 1040EZ, the IRS introduced these additional forms that have to go with the 1040. So this first one is the Schedule 1, and it is additional income and adjustments to income. So any income that was not listed directly on the Form 1040, you're going to see it in Part 1, additional income on there. And then TaxSlayer, it will let you have a preview of looking at these forms on here to see. If you don't see what you're going to see, if it's listed on this Schedule 1, you're going to then see the summary total of Part 1. It's going to get reflected, moved over to the Form 1040. Then Part 2, it's going to be adjustments to income. So these are reductions, what's minus the income, subtracted from the income. Our Schedule 2, it has additional taxes. So some people could be just subject to their federal tax, have federal tax liability, but then some other people, they may have additional taxes that they're subject. So we're going to talk about those self-employed individuals. That means they have to pay their self-employment, the employee and employer tax. There may be some individuals that got health insurance through the marketplace. Those are some of the common additional taxes that you may see. And then down below, we have other taxes. Again, so I've already talked about like the self-employment tax on there. We're going to also talk about maybe if a person pulled from their retirement early, they may be, it's possible that they will be subject to tax on there. So this is what Schedule 2 is. Schedule 2 is those additional taxes outside of the federal tax liability. Okay, we're going to go to the last form, the last schedule, and this is Schedule 3. These are additional credits and payments. So Part 1 is non-refundable credits. So these, we're going to talk about non-refundable credits, how they reduce a person's liability and try to reduce it as close to zero as possible on here. So again, if it wasn't listed on the Form 1040, you're going to see those non-refundable credits in Part 1 of this schedule. And then Part 2 is going to be other payments and refundable credits. So the good thing about these other payments and refundable credits, if a person's tax liability is already zero, it's going to produce a refund to the tax client. If they still have a liability, it's going to reduce it. It's going to reduce that liability to hopefully get that balance due down, or can it convert it over to a refund? And again, so all of these schedules, it just takes that summary total, that amount, and it's going to move it over to the Form 1040. So maybe if you see a line that just says Schedule 1, you're going to have to refer to the Schedule 1 just to see what that amount is made up of. Okay, and getting close, ending up with our housekeeping, we have our links and passwords. So a lot of you, again, when you get your email from Jonathan, he's already going to give you a lot of this information for the Link and Learn. If you've already taken your ethics and intake, then you're going to see number 3, the Vita Central on there. That's also when you go to that link, you're going to see under quick links, you're going to see access to the practice lab on there. And then when you go to that practice lab, if you go to number 4, we have a universal password that everyone has to use to access. And that is in all caps, the Train Pro Web. Once you put that password in, it is going to have you to create an account. You're going to do a username and a password. That password, your password has to be 15 characters long. I would suggest you write that information down, save it so that you can refer back to it on there, because you're going to be into the practice lab. You're going to have 3 scenarios that you're going to have to complete. You can also use the practice lab. Maybe if someone asks you, hey, can you let me know what my return is? You can use the practice lab for that. You can also continue to go into the practice lab just to practice with inputting information in on there. Then number 5, the Volunteer Hub. You all have already signed up into Better Impact. You signed up here for this site. But once you take your advanced certification and you've passed it and you give your volunteer agreement over to Jonathan, that means you're ready to sign up for any of our site locations. You have to take that volunteer agreement to all site locations that you go to just for the first time so that we can verify you and get you set up with an account. You're also able to make adjustments to your volunteer, to your schedule. So if you decide that you're going to come to my site, something came up, you have an exam that you need to study for, you're able to go in and cancel. If not, you can contact me or Jonathan, and we can make modifications to that on there. So you're able to see all choices for our different sites. Now, there is times where we will limit the number of volunteers that can go to a site, just so we can try to push volunteers at another location as well. So if you go in and you don't see anything for that particular day or time, that means we're full to capacity. And so we would ask that you know, if you can, go to another site location. If it is out your way, just knowing that we do have that rideshare program. Also, number 6, again, this is if you have to contact Jonathan, maybe if you have to cancel same day for your slot on there. And so then there's our resources, our website, DallasTaxCenters.org, and then our Facebook and our YouTube. So what we're doing with this training today and tomorrow, it's going to be recorded. We're going to clean it up, and we're going to also put it on our YouTube page. So those individuals that were not able to attend the training this week, they can go to our YouTube, and then they're going to see the training broken up in sections. So they can watch each section at their leisure.